Hey, are you wondering how to turn your hobby into a side hustle where you can make another stream of income? Well, you're in luck, my friend, because today that is exactly what we're gonna talk about. Today, I'm gonna give you 4 steps so you can have a little bit more cash on the side. All right, so number 1, the best thing to start doing is identify your talents and passions. I can't see how many times people have said, oh, I'm just gonna start this business because it sounds like a good idea. But they absolutely suck at it, okay? Nobody wants to hire you for something that you suck at. They wanna hire you for something you're great at. Now, the last time I checked, I didn't have somebody come to me saying, hey, Chris, I'd love you to hire for me for your company, but honestly, I'm not really good at what I do, but hire me anyways. That is exactly what I would not do, okay? You wanna be hired for something that you actually do well, and even better, it ties in with your passions. Not many people know this, but way back, 20 years ago and about 20 pounds ago, I actually was one of the nation's top amateur ballroom dancers. I know I don't look like it because my legs never get shown. If you want to see my legs, here you go. This is what I do. I wear shorts pretty much all day long, but business on the top, party on the bottom, right? But anyways, 20 years ago, I was one of the nation's top amateur ballroom dancers. Now, I didn't start that way. I was horrible at it, absolutely horrible. I could not dance at all. In fact, I remember my very first social dance class in college. The only reason I took it, by the way, is because there was a lot of girls in the class, and I said, as an 18-year-old hormonal boy, that is the class for me. And so I took that class, and a lot of the girls would actually go around. They would try to skip out, trying to dance with me because I wasn't a very good partner. But you know what? I liked it. I had fun in that class. And so because of that passion, I kept doing it. Even though I wasn't great, I kept doing it. That eventually got my talent better. I started to practice more. I started using the actual talents I had. Because one talent I have is I'm really good at just doing things over and over, practicing and perfecting. Always making and building a better mousetrap, right? So that's one of my talents. And so I started doing that. And pretty soon by the second semester, I even got 3rd place in one of the competitions at the school. A few years later, I'm starting to win competitions, and I'm starting to dance with the World Championship Ballroom Dance Team, all because I took those talents and passions, and even though I was competing against people that had been dancing since they could barely walk, and I was 18 when I first started, still I was able to catch up because of that reason. Your passions can actually amplify your talents. So if you tie those 2 things together, man, you can get something that people would not just pay you for a side hustle, but that might even become a main hustle for you. So look for those talents and those passions to be able to use for your benefit. And then number 2 comes to this, is you need to identify the need. You need to know what problem you're gonna solve for other people. Listen, if people don't feel like they have a problem with something, they don't feel like they have a need for something, they're not gonna need you either. And so you gotta find the need. Sometimes you have to create the need, right? But you gotta identify what people are asking for. What is the problem that they're asking to be solved? What's something that they complain about? And trust me, nowadays, the world is full of complainers, aren't they? I mean, all you have to do is turn on the news or social media and you got a bunch of whiners everywhere. Heck, look in the comments on YouTube. You might even find a few whiners here in the comments. It might even be you. So you want to identify the need. What problem are you solving? How are you adding value into their lives where they're willing to exchange dollars for that value? Because the key thing is this, is that dollars follow the value you create for other people. If you want to make more money, in fact, stop asking that question. Stop asking, how do I make more money? That is the worst question ever because people have asked that since the dawn of time. And many people have remained broke asking that question. You gotta go to the root cause of money. What actually creates money? Why will people actually pay you? They pay you because they want you to either solve a problem, be able to serve them in some sort of way, or add value, something that enriches their life. When you do those things, you make more money. It's just a natural byproduct. People want to exchange, they hit that in their life. They're like, I don't know what to exchange with you. I don't make my own bread anymore. I'm not a blacksmith, making my tools or whatever else. I've got money though because I'm a tech nerd and that's what I know how to do. So let me give you money so that I can get that thing that I can't do or I don't have or I don't want to do and get that into my own life. That is exactly the thing you need to do. So once you identify your talents and passions, make sure you identify a need. Make sure that there's a reason for this side hustle. Otherwise, you're wasting your time and wasting really your money and your energy. And you know what? If you're married, your spouse is gonna hate you if you do something like that where you just have this hobby that really doesn't do much. Okay, so that's the big thing you wanna make sure you do. So look for that need. Third is set up a corporation for taxes, right? What kind of corporation can you set up? Now there's various things you can do. I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to tell you what to do, and I'm not a CPA either. But I will tell you, depending on the situation, most often people will set up in the United States an LLC, or a limited liability corporation. Now, why do you set these things up? Well, one, now if you talk to your accountant, they're going to give you a different answer than your attorney. Your accountant's going to say, oh, well, you'll save some money on taxes. If they're a bad accountant, they'll say, oh, you won't save anything on taxes, which is not true. You can save a lot of money just by having a hobby. In fact, I've even shown people that set up like network marketing businesses, things like that, where maybe they weren't making any money in that, but just by the reason that they had a side business and they had ability to write off things, they not only set up a corporation, but they were able to write things off. For example, their cell phone bill. Now all of a sudden they could write it off as a business expense. They started writing off some of their utilities or home office expenses. They started writing off some of their travel and gas and mileage, which nowadays, we need that, don't we? I mean, they were writing off all these things. Even if they didn't make a dime, it saved them so much money on their taxes from being an employee. They were able to actually free up some money on their paychecks, take more money home to use that to be seed money for making their side hustle. So a corporation can be a great idea just for having tax purposes. But on top of that, it's also a great protection, because this is what your attorney will say. They'll say, well, forget about taxes, that's nice, but you need to protect you and your family. Because if somebody sues you for that business, you want to make sure they sue the business, not you and your family, right? So keeping that separation between your business and you is very important. Again, I'm not going into depth on this one, but I would definitely consult an attorney or talk to your CPA, especially if they're a good one. If they suck, talk to somebody else, but maybe get a second opinion. But talk to them and find out what's the best setup for you. Now, here's something I'll say. It's kind of an extra, by the way, bonus, whatever you want to say here, because I think side hustles are great, and I think they can be awesome just for the reasons I mentioned. And in fact, if it's a passion of yours and if it's a hobby, you might as well do something with it and make use of it, right? But it's not always necessary. And sometimes a side hustle, if you've got such limited time, you're already working overtime hours at your job, you have limited time in the evenings or on your weekends, and maybe this would take you away from your family completely, you might want to question whether the side hustle is really for you. And so I give you this advice is, instead of focusing on just doing the side hustle, maybe instead you actually look for ways to create passive income without having to spend your time and energy doing it, right? For example, if you have money you've built up in savings, and heck, maybe you do have the side hustle, maybe you've saved some money on taxes and you have this extra tax return coming in. What could you do with that money to start generating more passive income that you don't have to work for? There's a difference. There's active income and then there's passive income. Remember, active income is money you work for. A side hustle, even though it could be aligned with your passions, is still money you work for. You have to actively give energy, time, give of your talents and everything that you have to be able to make that work, to be able to get paid. If you don't give those things, you don't get paid. But if you create passive income comes in whether you work or not. It comes in while you sleep. That sounds too good to be true? You might think so, but that is exactly what we teach here. We teach people about passive income. And so you can actually get your money to start making more money for you. It's almost like having money and putting $2 bills together and rub them together and little baby George pops out. You're like, oh, it's a boy, right? It's kind of like that. You can make more money with your money. And so things like real estate investing, you can do something like that. And by the way, you don't have to have a ton of money. I mean, granted, if you have at least $25,000 to $50,000, you could do a lot. But there are some things out there you can create passive income with as little as $100 or $1,000 just to get started. And I'll tell you, some of them will pay you sometimes 7, 8, 9, 10, 12% plus just by investing in these things. And so if you're limited on time and you don't have a lot of that energy to give, maybe look for passive income. Now, if you got plenty of time, you're saying, hey, I've got time, what can I do with this? Awesome. Then a side hustle could exactly be the thing that you need. But be warned is that, again, if your time is limited and this means it sacrifices you and your family and your sanity, look for maybe some other options. Maybe look outside of that for ways to create more passive income right now and let your active main job or your business be the thing that actually helps create more passive income by building up that savings and then using it to work for you so you don't have to keep working for it. All right, so let me give you an example of some other types of passive income. Now, This required a little bit of time, so it wasn't fully passive. It was a side hustle, but it was leveraged time. It was time that was able to create a few $1,000s a month with really, in the beginning, several hours a week, but then only a few hours a week after that. One of my clients, Brian, he worked a full-time job as a tech guy. He was in his 30s. He was young and hungry. He wanted more passive income. He was creating a lot of passive income on the side from other investments. But he said, you know what, Chris? I want to create a little side hustle that also creates a little bit extra, really passive income, but at a higher level. And so what did he do? He actually got an Airbnb business. Now here's the thing. Here's what's cool. He didn't buy the properties. He actually did it where he rented the properties from the landlord and then turned around and what they did, subleased it. They call it sublease, where you rent it and then you rent it to somebody else. He subleased it to somebody else and started creating passive income just doing that, spending only just a few hours a week. So there's a lot of different ways to create side hustles. Now, it may not align with your talents, or maybe you might think that's the coolest thing ever. Again, find something that, as we recap, make sure it ties in with your talents, something that you actually do well, or at least something you're passionate about. And if they both intersect, even better. And then make sure you're identifying a need. Make sure there's a need for it. Now, this Airbnb business that Brian had would not have worked if he hadn't had a need. If there was no need for short-term rentals, it would be a crappy business, right? So don't do that. And of course, set up a corporation to not only save on taxes, but then also to be able to protect you and your family. Make sure if somebody happens to sue you, heaven forbid that ever happens, knock on wood, then what can happen is it'll separate it. It'll keep it all separate from you and your family so they're untouched. And then of course, like I said, look for other ways for passive income if it's not just a side hustle. Now, I would love to hear your comments below. What kind of side hustles are you working on right now? What are you passionate about? What are you trying to make money on? And has it worked? So go ahead and put that in the comments below. And if you like this video, check out how to start investing and earning passive income now.